Hello, welcome back to NPC Stories. We are talking about non-humanoid NPCs today. One of the beautiful things about Dungeons & Dragons is that there's so many crazy creatures that you can put into your stories to make them new and different and interesting for you and your players. In fact, there is this whole book full of monsters and creatures and stuff that you can put in there, and then probably about half of this book of monsters and creatures and stuff you can put in there. And so far, I've only talked about humans, elves, half-orcs, halflings, and gnomes. So I wanted to cover everything else today. Buckle in, guys. It's going to be a long ride. No, not really. That would be crazy. We would be here forever. Now, Volo's Guide has an entire chapter of new character races and even some monstrous races. Unfortunately, all of these races are humanoids. Apparently no one wants to be anything else. But what I'm going to talk about today are non-humanoids. That means aberrations, monstrosities, beasts, fae, fiends, celestials, undead, oozes, constructs. I'm probably still missing some, but there's a lot of them. Really, all you need to be a decent NPC is an intelligence above 6 and the ability to speak one language. And so many of these creatures can be so much more than just a monster to fight. They could be great intelligent villains, surprising allies, companions, familiars, even a sentient magic item could be an NPC. I just introduced a sentient book to my campaign, and he has his own class and character sheet and everything. Unfortunately, I can't tell you about him because I literally just introduced him and my players watch these videos and they don't need any extra help. So the 3 characters I do have for you today are a Naga Guardian, an Elk Companion, and a Dryad. Sincerostra is a Naga, charged by the gods long ago with the task of protecting an ancient artifact. Being immortal, they have found themselves with a lot of extra time on their hands. Or not hands. Naga don't have hands, Yuan-Ti have hands, and don't talk about the Yuan-Ti in front of a Naga. But Naga are great magic users, and Sincerostra has spent their time crafting new magical items to help aid them in their guardianship. As a Naga, Sincerostra has the body of a snake and the face of a human. They have dark blue scales on their back and light blue-green scales on their front. They have bright blue eyes with slitted snake's pupils and no hair, but they can fan their neck out into an impressive hood. From nose to tail, they're about 16 feet long. Sincerostra takes their job very seriously and hasn't seen another intelligent living thing in hundreds of years, so they are rightfully cautious around newcomers and not shy about displaying their power. Even if a Naga is killed, they rejuvenate in about 3 days, with a vengeance for whoever or whatever killed them. Sincerostra is not much for chatter, having become used to their isolated life, but that doesn't mean they won't thoroughly vet anybody who has come to seek the artifact that they guard. In my game, Sincerostra guarded the monolith that held the enchantment that kept the material plane and the water elemental plane separate. Of course, Sincerostra would be an apt guardian for any ancient artifact. Kine is an elk. He is actually the most recent addition to my player's party after an encounter with the Deck of Many Things. If you go looking through the Deck of Many Things, you will not see a card that gives anybody an elk. That is because I made it up. I called the card Steed, and it essentially acted like the Find Steed spell. So Kine is an elk, but I wanted him to be awesome, so I gave him the giant elk stats, but stuck him in a regular-sized elk body, and he can talk. Before being summoned by the card, Kine lived a very normal, very boring, regular elk life. Then suddenly the world seemed to shift around him as he became stronger, faster, and smarter as he was imbued with natural and divine magic. He suddenly understood words and could feel the pulse of the forest surrounding him, and he felt compulsively drawn towards the heart of it. And at that heart he found the man who would become his companion, the man he would grow to respect and care for and fight every day to protect. Kine looks like an elk. He has a full rack of antlers with 6 tines on each side, big brown eyes, but he is pure white. Kine is excited about his new companion and his new strength, speed, and intelligence, but is cautiously curious about the world outside the forest. He asks a lot of questions about things he doesn't understand, which is pretty much everything, but also doesn't want to bother his new companions too much, so he kind of alternates between a rant of questions and silent staring. Kine tries to be regal and respectable as an elk should, but sometimes his curiosity and ignorance get the better of him. Galata Birch is the dryad spirit of, you guessed it, a birch tree. She began her life as a young elven woman and struck a deal with the fae. She gained the power to capture the eyes and heart of a man she admired in exchange for her voice. The fae promised to give it back if she could capture his heart and seal their love with a kiss in the next 3 days. When she failed, they bound her spirit to the birch tree as punishment. This should sound like a very familiar story. Galata is 5'2" and quite petite. She has pale green skin, brown hair with green highlights, and silver eyes. She has no clothes or possessions other than her tree, but she will preserve her modesty with a few well-placed leaves. Galata is prone to love at first sight and hopes that if she could win another's heart and seal that with a kiss, then perhaps the Fae would release her from her punishment. They wouldn't, but she hopes. While most of the time she is friendly and or flirtatious, any displays of affection or reminders of the love that she lost can send her into a jealous rage. And an angry dryad is a scary dryad. You don't want to be in that forest. And there are some non-humanoid characters for you. As I said, this category has a huge range of possibilities and is a really nice divergence from the norm, which can be fun for you and your players. As always, I hope this was somehow inspiring or helpful to you. You can let me know by liking this video, and if you want to see more NPCs in the future, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Join me next week as we go shopping again, but this time at some more unusual shops.